that the synagogue has kind of hidden some truths about the Kabbalah, and they've labeled the Kabbalah something that is wicked or wrong. And I really feel that it's a deception, because I do believe that the Hebrew roots is the direct lineage to the elect, the past, the prior, the Alpha and Omega. And I really commend you for being a strong woman of the Creator, and stepping out of the boundaries, and you know, sharing the truths, and the Goyim are getting it. So basically, I have a bunch of YouTube channels. I study all things truth related, and I'd like to know more about the Kabbalah.
Oh, okay, now we're live again. So Liz, how are you?
I am well, Ronnie. That is so great. You are just great. I cannot believe people who can do bells and whistles and push buttons. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a constant learning experience for me. I'm constantly having new things to tackle. And I think the Lord Yahweh, I think he does that because he knows that that's what I'm actually truly looking for. I'm not, nothing that comes easy is really worth having.
Right, right. No, it's true. It's true. It's true. So it's neat, but you know, the elect are finding each other. So, and now, like I said, we're kicking it up a notch. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. 3 years ago, and already we're moving up. We're moving up. The knowledge is coming out.
Yeah,
the rivers are flowing.
So, the I guess the crux, or the most important thing, I guess I'm going to take the screen share again. Everybody got to see us. Now we'll move on to, I'll show everybody your channel. So your most recent video series is called Unlocking the Keys, Beasts, Angels, Demons, and Dragons. So why don't you, as I click through here, you've got your chart in the background. This is great. Why I like having you on live, because then we can, if you've got your camera, I can still have you on.
Right, and I have it behind me too, so we can go over it. Or, you know, this is sort of my cheat sheet.
Okay, well, if you want me to just put you on the full screen, I can do that as well. Let's do it like that, because it's a much better presentation with it like you on the big screen. Bam. Okay, so why don't you walk us through what's behind you?
All right. Well, I'm assuming, and Ronnie, so you and I are totally up to speed in the sense that you know, that the upper wisdom and the lower wisdom, and that they're in different levels of the text, right? So if people don't know my channel, I am totally like what I would call today, I guess, an esoteric teacher. I'm really trying to understand, unwrap, unpack, and you know, kind of teach back some of the deeper level meanings. And we know that this is in the word because Yeshua even says, you know, that he would speak to the people in parables, but he would talk to his disciples. He would give them the deeper, you know, real spiritual meaning. So, you know, I think it's getting pretty established. People are beginning to understand this. So I have been at this for years, as you know, you know, reading all these texts that we can to try to understand. But I am really about the keys to the kingdom. That's why I've started a series, because I have been keeping files and notes, and I have 50 files that have are all categorized, on which I believe is the way that the sages and the prophets have learned how to categorize information into subsets. So it's like math. You know, you have that whole math of subsetting stuff. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many levels of understanding they can get into. They can pack into like one word, one letter, one 3-letter root, or one word theology, you know, what the word means. It's amazing. And that's the onion peel. You can just keep. So anyways, I'm doing this now thing on real keys because in order to get the deeper level meaning, it's encrypted. So you would have to know, okay, the easiest one, angels, I mean, birds represent angels many times in the scripture. So, I mean, it's very easy and obvious kind of to see that one. So you have to see what words, how they do this. So lately I've been unwrapping this concept called beasts, because beast is a very big word. And of course the mark of the beast, right? So it's a whole biblical word and concept that is very important to unpack. So, but I will say that this is very esoteric. This is very, you know, I mean, probably a lot of people initially might, I mean, maybe not everybody can go with me right away to the levels that I've taken it. But I have a lot of biblical proof. I mean, there's a lot of proofs. It's nobody's, as I said, I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting, because what it says at the end of the age is that all knowledge, like everything will come out in the open, all the hidden mysteries, all the knowledge that's really been held in very tight esoteric circles. The Jews having, I don't think people realize, and I said, how much information the Jews have been holding on to, because that's their birthright, you know, that sort of, and they have kept it because it was supposed to be preserved for the last generation, as Enoch says. But it is confirmed in many of the writings, secular writings of the world, as everybody is kind of unpacking today, that the giants and the Nephilim and these hybrid races are all over the place in ancient literature. So it's not like, but I have a cheat sheet behind me, and Ronnie said that, and I could give, if you want, my basic premise.
Yeah. Walk us through the basic understanding. So what you have behind you,
right,
the part and the sod level, if you just give a really basic understanding.
Yeah, I have a YouTube, if anybody's really interested in this, because there is, and let me just say this, I really believe in the text that Judah has preserved. Now, I know it's not a perfect world. I'm not looking for perfect, but I do trust the literature that we have preserved, like the Dead Sea Scrolls, the extra biblical texts, you know, things like the Book of Jasher, the Book of Enoch, you know, and you know, Ronnie, you too, we read the extra biblical texts, and I you know, they're not, but there's a body of knowledge there that I believe in. All right. So, and with discernment through the Ruach, I believe that it says that we can come into truth, like a little, I believe that. So, but the thing is, I am very Judeo-centric. I am not like a occultist or like a hermetic occultist. If people are kind of aware, I don't read Aleister Crowley. I don't go to the dark side. I get all of my information from authentic Jewish mystical texts, and then I will look broader, maybe see what the Greeks say about this or other things. So I need that. It just, to me, it's very important, because that Paul is one of my, you know, theological heroes, because he was a very deep mystical teacher, and that's why a lot of people don't understand him. It kind of so anyways, but Judah, it says in Romans 9:5, and I do want to just say this because this is again always my jumping off point, that Judah, it was said, Paul said, theirs is the adoption of sons. I'm in Romans 9. Theirs is the divine glory. Theirs is the covenants. Theirs is the receiving of the law. Theirs is the temple worship. Theirs is the promises. Theirs is the patriarchs. And from them is the human ancestry of Christ. So that's about everything we have. You know, people don't, the Old Testament is not just a bunch of, everything is in the house of Judah that we need to go back to, as, you know, returning Ephraimites, or, you know, Christians kind of going back to our first, getting grafted back in. So that being said, but when it comes to beasts, because today we live in a time, you know, like as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be again. And a lot of people are unpacking so much information about the giants and the Nephilim, and, you know, that maybe there were centaurs and all these hybrid creatures that mythology teaches about and all these things. But the thing is, it's not really spelled out in our text. You know, people say, well, show me that in the Bible. And sometimes you really can't show it in a sense of, okay, but because it's encrypted a little bit more so. It's like, in other words, so when you go to kindergarten, you teach the child at a kindergarten level, it's a nice story. It's about the birds and the bees, you know, if you're trying to explain, you know, but when you get to be an adult, you've got to be able to get right into the heart of the matter. And that's why a lot of these words, you have to be a little more schooled in how they're used to get to the heart of the matter.
So when you say esoteric, what is exactly that you mean?
There is two types of knowledge. There's what's called exoteric, and then there's esoteric. Exoteric is knowledge that's for everybody. This is what there's a famous quote in 2nd Esdras where he talks about rewriting the 94 books. And he said, make public 24 of them. And that is the Septuagint. And basically, the Old Testament, the Septuagint that we have. And that is for everybody. And that's for saint or sinner or child. Everybody, every Jew is expected totally to know and master the Septuagint. Now, what Ezra said is, but reserve the 72 books for the wise. So, in other words, in the wise people who go, the Torah scholars, not everybody's called to be a Torah scholar. You know, some people got to, you know, there's a lot of things that need to be done in the kingdom, right? So, yes. But for the Torah scholars, the 72 books are the books of more in-depth wisdom. So it's like a lot of people, we get high school biology, but not all of us go on to get a PhD in biology or chemistry, all right? The books for the people, the books that the people who get the PhD level are different than the ones we get in high school. And really, that's the concept. So esoteric knowledge is much more, it's deeper, it's a little more, you know, you got to be a little more astute, have studied longer, harder, bigger, badder, better, broader.
So you're saying esoteric and mystical understandings are paths that take extra work to get to. They're not, you just walk down the street and see the road signs. This is something that takes effort.
Yeah, this is the concept of being a Torah sage in the Old Testament. I mean, that's why some of these people were the prophets, because they really studied. I mean, they spent their whole life following Yahweh.
It does say in the New Testament, though, that there's nothing hidden that will not be revealed and nothing concealed that will not be known and illuminated or brought to the light, which I do believe is your main job here, is to bring the ancient mystical and esoteric teachings back to everybody, to the, you know, I would have to say that there are many Jews that don't even practice this type of
yeah, the problem is that most Christians and Jews today are basically secular. They have an intellectual understanding, an intellectual agreement basically, but they're not Berean. You know, most Jews do not even read their own deep texts. I mean, it's just this, you know, so, but there are those that do, and it's not for everybody, but for those who do, in the Old Testament, they would have a place. There would be Torah academies. You would, you know. So,
but you're not Jewish. I'm
a lay person. Let me just tell you right now, I have no PhDs. I have no numbers, no letters after my name. I am a total 100% daughter of Yahweh.
Are you Goy or are you Jewish?
Well, I'm an Ephraimite, all right, so I'm a Goy, I'm a gent technically, but I believe that I am a lost tribe, or I believe we're all lost sheep, you know, the house of Israel.
Okay, because
I totally ascribe to the two houses of Israel.
Right now, in the quote-unquote truth movement, there's been a lot of attack against the Talmud, against Kabbalah, because you do understand that a lot of Kabbalah is used as witchcraft, correct?
Well, because it's pretty heavy-duty, deep stuff. Say, if you're going to be let me put it this way: both sides, and I call this the Luciferians, the Canaanite bloodlines, okay, and the most holy remnant, and Jews and Christians, but have top of their game people, have like the prophets. These people were at the top of their game. If you're going to be a Luciferian, or like if anybody, you've got to know both sides of the story. So they read the holy literature, so they know, and it's like we're told, be wise as a serpent. We should know their modus operandi. Doesn't mean you practice it. It just means when you're in a war, you need to know your opponent, what he's capable of, what he has done. It's a war, people.
I agree, and that's another reason why I've been super focused on reading all the extra scriptures, all the extra books, and you know, my understandings of the higher levels are getting expanded with the work that you've been doing. Now, you said you have a friend who's been producing the videos. I put your link in the chat. I'll do it again so everybody knows if they want to watch your videos. What's her name? And
well, I have a producer, so it's this gal. And she is just like you. I mean, she's really good at this stuff, because, you know, it's like a Paul and Barnabas thing to me, because I can do what I can do. I can read. That's all I can do. I can't do, for modern societies, this is, for the modern mindset, you have to be able to produce it in a way that it will engage people.
Yeah, you do she does a really good job.
She does a great job, and it's not my gift, but together we can reach this audience. So, you know, and like you, Ronnie, like together we can reach the audience at a level that will engage them.
Oh yeah, but like the problem is when it comes to this kind of stuff, we're going way beyond the average person. So behind you,
I know.
We've got.
Can I make one last disclaimer?
Yes.
Just about you said about Kabbalah. I know this. See, now when I got led into Kabbalah, but through this, because every time I would research stuff, I would like the Father. I'd say, I know there's more here. I know these words are vibrating. I know these words mean more, and I would go and try to figure out find places that would give me deeper understandings. And I always end up on Kabbalah sites, Jewish Kabbalah sites. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is telling me what I need to know. So the father, I was a complete innocent. I never knew that Kabbalah, not everybody liked it. I thought this was the greatest thing on the planet. I was like, this is awesome. And I kept reading and doing some research. Then I find out that there's a whole camp out there. And the same thing with the Talmud and the Mishnah. I just thought the Jews were brilliant. I have always loved Judah. And I'm thinking these people have really kept the writings in the house. They know. And then I come find out that the enemy he's just all over the place trying to profane and to defame. This is Yahweh's material for his people, his Torah. So, I mean, it is sad. It is sad that it's so profane today. But people just have to, be brave and know the spirit. I always say, greater is he that's in me. Greater is, Yeshua. And greater is the Ruach that's in me than the enemy that's in the world.
The spirit, that's right. And we go beyond the Masoretic points because we don't believe that, everything was preserved, but I don't use the Masoretic words like Yeshua. There was no oo sound in the original Hebrew, the Paleo Hebrew, but that's completely what I believe is going all the way with truth research, and that's why I've always enjoyed your channel. I've been watching it for years and years and years, and I am just now starting to, really understand what it is that you're teaching. So behind you, you've got some words here and some scriptures, which is great. Let's get into this.
So this is my thesis now, because, all right, most people are beginning to get on their radar that we are not alone in the universe. And we've never been alone. And just realistically, it wouldn't make sense that we were the only living beings in all of this huge, even with string theory now, knowing that there are many dimensions. I mean, why? So the Bible is very clear. The prophets have kept the information of how, yes, there are many sons. Yahweh has many, and this is the point, sons of Elohim, okay? And how the prophets have encrypted. Now we're in a war. I think most people understand that. Hasatan and his minions, his side, is always fighting against, let's say, Yeshua and the righteous remnant. And this is sort of goes back to Genesis 3:15. The seed of the woman will fight against the seed of the serpent. Okay, and that's another whole unpacking. And I'm sure a lot of people are beginning to understand the serpent is not like a snake. He is what's called a Nakash. He's an angelic ordered being. Now, what the prophets did, and this is confirmed in Enoch, and I will tell people too, if you want to get a quick video from me on more of this, Enoch, it's called episode 72, and it's called Enoch in the Animal Apocalypses. Enoch was one of the first who, you can see that in the military. He tells this whole story of creation and the different ages and the different nations and the people groups with animals. Okay, so this was a very established thing that they did. And I show how in Enoch in the Animal Apocalypses, he takes the whole scope of creation and not just human beings. We're talking angels, because if you read the Enoch Apocalypse, you'll understand that all of a sudden the angels are like the men in the Enoch storyline. And then like Noah and these guys, they're like bullocks. So it's a really interesting parallel. But they didn't stop just in Enoch. In our text, on the days of creation, and most people understand now that in the beginning, Yahweh made the heavens and the earth became without form and void, that there was a creation, there was a recreation, that we actually live in a recreation, not, the original creation. And that's a whole piece of the story, very esoteric understanding in there. But what they did in the first chapter of Genesis is, in the order of creation, all those words are really coded to express. Now, we know Yahweh. And if you understand, so listen to episode 72, Noah, Enoch and the Animal Apocalypses. And then I have another video called Pards, which talks about the different levels of biblical understanding in the text. It's very Hebraic. This is what it's called Pards, which is Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. I teach this, what is called the Sud level of understanding, which is like the deeper level, the mysteries. And Paul even says, he says, I got a mystery. This is the whole point with the Gen. So it's very legitimate. Anyways, when Yahweh made on the 5th and the 6th day, he made fish, birds in order. He made fish. Then he went on and he made these two great sea dragons, the translations. See, I don't even go with the translations. That's why I put up the Strong's numbers, the Hebrew. You got to you just got to orientate your minds to the Hebrew words and stick with those only. Because I also
Leviathan and Behemoth.
Yes, he made the Leviathan and the Behemoth, which is hinted at in a lot of other literature, right? You've read it all over the place.
And got it, you know.
Yep. And then he made the birds. He made a class of birds. So, but what they're telling, these are orders of living beings. Now, the word living, and this is how I go through this whole thing, you have to understand the word living and the word being. It's really living, che. And Ronnie, we've talked this, living. They have a piece of Yahweh. They're his sons. And che, che means living. That's the Hebrew word. And living soul. Being is the word nephesh, which is the word soul, and it is the first level of soul. And this explains why Adam, what's different. We are Adamites. We are a little bit different. Every order of being has its own kind of DNA makeup and its own dominion, you know? So what they did, they said, so he made fish, he made these two great serpentines, which is really the word serpentines. We get dragons from it. These are really the dragons. And the draconian, and then he made these birds. On the sixth day, he went on and he made a behemoth, which is the word. It's translated beast sometimes, but it shouldn't be, because it really is translated mostly oxen, cattle, livestock, animals. It's domesticated animals that are nice. They don't hurt you. I mean, they're really like your helpmate. You know, they kind of. And then he made creeping things, and then he made Adam. Adam, it says, was more than a living being. Adam was made as a living being with a living soul, but he was breathed into him was something else called the breath of life, which is, you know, I look at it in computer program, like Adam got the Windows Deluxe program. I mean, Adam was way more sophisticated.
Well, see, we teach here that we're in a simulation.
Yeah.
Right? We don't believe that we're in a Big Bang endless universe.
Yeah, it's a whole, and we taught it's a hologram. It's same. I think we're saying the same thing.
It's mostly we can
image.
Yeah, there's light. We can find light,
and
right?
And then according to what you you know.
So when you're saying that, you know, Adam had the full download, so when you could imagine a programmer making a video game, like I used to play this NHL game, I would max out my guy 99 speed, 99 strength. But what I understand on a higher level, so the fish, the birds, the serpent, the cattle, the creeping things, and the Adamites, they all have an earthly pard level and a heavenly sod level, correct? So I believe that the angelic orders were also created in this fashion. Well,
let me see. This is where the Hebrew part of my thing is people, like I said, throwing away the English and sticking with these Hebrew words, because Hebrew, I think, is like a DNA language. It's like a chemical, because when you put different root letters together, and then whenever you see a word that has those root letters in it, it's all like the same root. So it's a very precise, and it's a perfect language for classification. And that's what they do. They classify. So let's just go back to the serpents that were made, because it's the 8565 word, tan, T-A-N, is the root word, 3-letter root word. And that's called, it's translated as a jackal, a serpent, a dragon, a sea monster, a whale. I mean, you know, the translators don't know what they're talking about. But what it is it is the race of serpentines or dragons. So, which we're unpacking now, kind of this concept of draconians. All right. But I will tell you who fish is. See, but what has to understand on day 5 and 6, this is why, and again, I go back to the teachings of, because to me, the Jews have had thousands of years to think about this classify, this is what these prophets did, get our deeper insights and keep it. So what I don't like are people who just kind of come into it and just start making stuff up. If you want to figure it out, go read there's nothing left to make up. All we need to do is bring it to the light.
Well, yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying, because in the flat earth movement, there's been people who just invent maps and positions of celestial bodies when they don't exist in reality. And I'm always like, hey, guys, we are here to witness and report what we see, not what we want it to be. So I do understand where you're coming from. I just believe that it will be all taught to us. And I think just like there's different levels of Satanism, you know, someone who just doesn't believe in the creator as an adversary, and then so on and so forth, up to like child rituals and, you know, within the research and understanding of the hierarchy of the angelic order, I believe that everybody has to seek what they feel led to find. And I know that you are, I could just imagine, you know, you proclaimed yourself to be an Ephraimite, so from the house as well. We are descendants of the line of Adam, correct? Right?
Oh, absolutely. You see, but what's so interesting, right? The reason is because at the end of the age, what's going to come out is there's a judgment. There's a huge,
yes.
Everything, when it says that everything's coming out in the open, it's not just talking about knowledge, it's talking about all the creatures. The veil is going to be lifted. And we're going to be interfacing with each other. So that's why men's hearts are going to fail for fear, because all of a sudden you're going to start seeing what was always around you, but we're prevented from seeing it. Okay.
Yeah, well, I do believe that is starting to become reality.
It's happening. It's happening. Because Satan is getting so bold. Oh my gosh, that's the whole thing. Yeah. But
it's getting bad. I know.
It's getting, and it's going to get totally transparent, and people are going to freak. I mean, I'm telling you.
Well, in the Enoch, it speaks that the righteous will get more righteous, and the wicked will become more wicked, and
more wicked.
Yeah, and what I've really come to understand is that we have to understand things without a bias, and we just have to share to the best of our understanding. My camera's moved here. We just have to do the best that we can. So keep going. I cut you off there.
Well, no, it's okay. But the thing is, to me, the reason this is important for two reasons. I don't just pursue things. One is, to me, I think when this knowledge is all coming, it's going to give Yah great glory. Because a lot of now, the secular world makes fun of us in the sense of, oh, your Bible text, you know, it's only for kindergartners. You know, yeah, Eve ate an apple. What does that mean? Or I've heard Neil, what's his name? You know, that's Tyson.
Yeah, DeGrasse Tyson, yeah.
Yeah, he was in an interview and he was mocking Christian. He goes, oh yeah, the sun and the moon are going to fall from the heavens. I mean, like, really? That's going to happen? Like, so because so if you don't understand that that's an allegory for principalities, you know, sun and moon are used as principalities, as angels. Yeah, they're coming down. Satan is, you know, he's going to get cast down. So our final war is going to be with all of these other races. This is my last word that people have to get down here is species, because the reason in Genesis, where every single day it's told that whatever Yahweh created was to repopulate, replenish, and reproduce only after their kind. I mean, there has to be, he's telling us something. So if you want the ecosystem that Yahweh originally made, everything would be wonderful and fine and hunky-dory if everything stayed within its DNA, you know, coded kind of genomes. Well, we know from history that did not happen, right? That's what
the fallen angels messed with it, right?
It's all over the place. But it's not just the fallen angels. See, and this is what in Enoch's happened now, that they were, and the real word is fornicating, because see, a lot of this stuff, what the Jews understand, okay, with the birds, with the angels, with the fish, and with the creeping things, that's what it says in Enoch. It says it in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It says it all over the place. Mm-hmm. Now, people think that this is just genetic engineering, and to a certain extent it is. But let me just read you. Now, one thing, I say this is all from Bible text. This is the codes, and I'm going through methodically now. My next YouTube, I'm going to start with fish. Mm-hmm. And I just want to give a little preview. Fish were the first thing that made, but this corresponds to ancient history. Now, Ronnie, the other side of this coin, which I'm not going to go into, is time. And how the Jews and how, let's see, I'll call our brother Yudah has understood the classification of time. All right. So we are not talking about a literal 6,000 year creation or literally in 24 hours, because it's a classification system. All right. Now, let me just read this quote from Berosus, who was an early historian, like I think about 300 BC. And I'm going to go through a bunch of early historians. The history of the early people, or the early, completely coincides with our biblical record. The problem is today they're rewriting our history. Nobody is going back. They're not teaching the kids what the ancient historians said about our origins. They're teaching them Darwin and, you know, we came from monkeys. No one in the ancient world believed that. Nobody. That was not at all.
So there's where you have the negative side of Kabbalah, because it's teachings that were mistranslated and taught wrong to the goy, and the goy ran with it, and they're not true. And what they've done is they've taken away when the Creator made the light and said, let the light become solid, and he brought the hard solid down, and they take that as nothingness exploded into everything.
Right. Well, that's a whole different kind of.
Was it Arbros?
Talk about the days. See that you have days 1, 2, 3, 4 stuff happen, but right now in this, I'm focusing on day kind of 5 and 6, where he started to make what is called living souls, and these are physically manifested beings, like Paul says, that not only have a soul, but they have a flesh. They have a body form. Yeah. They're all humanoid. So in Berosus, it says, is the first book of history of in his first book of his history of Babylonia, informs us that he lived in the age of Alexander, the son of Philip, Alexander the Great, and he mentions that there were written accounts preserved at Babylon, with the greatest care, comprehending a period of above 15 myriads. Now, let me just read 15 myriads. A myriad, if you Google it, it's 10,000 years. It comes from the Greek word myrio, So 15 myrios is 150,000 years. Now, anyone out there who's ever studied, heard about the thing called the Sumerian king list, and the Sumerians and the Babylonians geographically are kind of a progression of the same people group. There is so much of this long ages in the early text writings. Even if you read a lot of the Egyptian writings, or you go into Thoth, what's his name, Hermes Trismegistus, they talk about the earlier ages, and they never put them in literal 24-hour days or 6,000 years. There's always myriads. But that's a side note. But what I want to say is, and that these writings contain histories of the heavens and the sea, of the birth of mankind, of the kings, and of the memorable actions which they had achieved. So what people have to understand is, this is where everybody's different. So you have the histories of the heavens and the earth, which is what Genesis 1:1 tells us. This is the genealogies. If people look at the Hebrews, it's the genealogies, the descendants, the offspring of heavenly beings, and of the earth, not only of the sea. Because if you really look at these different beings, fish live in the sea. Yes, literally they live in the sea, but it's also telling you that there are races, but the sea is not. This is how you have to understand it's not literally the sea. The sea refers to the underworld. It's on earth, but it's anything that lives in the sea lives under, in the sea. Yeah, well,
that's what I teach, that the waters above are the rain, and the waters below are the seas, right? So the below, the netherworld, the downwards, the pit, that is where the fish's domain are. And
right, and they're demons. These are really a lot. But not only, I sort of mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
No. So let me just keep reading a couple of these little things. So at Babylon, there was in these times a great resort of people of various nations who inhabited Chaldea and lived in a lawless manner like the beasts of the field. See, now if you study that, and I'm going to beasts of the field over and over again, these are people. It's a reference to literally.
Well, didn't Nebuchadnezzar have to live like a beast in the field for 7 years?
These are people who are pre-Adamites. It's comparing yourself to a pre-Adamite, someone who does not have the breath, the program, whatever you want to call it, of an Adamite. Okay, so living like a beast in the field. In the first year, there appeared from that part of the Erythraean Sea, which borders upon Babylonia, an animal destitute of reason. Now, reason. They will tell you that the program that Adam got was a program of very high reasoning. He was extremely intelligent. He was able to name all the animals, understand them. Reason and intellect and the mind are the highest programs, and that's what Adam got. So these Babylonians that were living just like the beasts of the field, which is that's what. When Jonah had to go preach at Nineveh, he said, look, you're living like beasts. You better repent because you're lawless. Okay. In the first year, there appeared from that part of the Erythraean Sea, which borders upon Babylonian, an animal destitute of reason or the higher programs by name Oeneus, O-A-N-N-E-S, whose whole body, which is the same word, if you Google it now, you get Dagon. You ever heard of the fish god? Dagon? This is a real race, and this Onias or Dagon, whose whole body, according to the account of Apollodorus, was that of a fish. That under the fish's head he had another head, with feet also below, similar to those of a man, subjoined to the fish's tail. His voice, too, and language was articulate and human, and a representation of him is preserved even to this day. Now, look, we do have, the Egyptians have hieroglyphics of the fish head.
The Pope wears the Dagon hat.
I know it. So what I'm trying to tell people now, we've got to really grow up and look at this thing. This is what the ancients said. Dagon and Poseidon. So if he's Dagon in the Babylonian Chaldean myths, he is Poseidon. If you're a Roman,
and there's many titles.
He is the king. He has many, many titles. But this is real. And I have another point. So the fish god, and he had hands, fish is a head. I don't really think, what I think they're referring to is scaling. Now, I have to tell people, I've seen a reptilian. Okay, so in one episode of my life. So to me, I know this stuff is real, and nobody will tell me I'm crazy.
Did the reptilian have green eyes?
Scaly. He was upright. He was very large, brawny. He was scary as all hell.
Maybe you thought you saw it in the spirit. And
no, well, I'll tell you what. I not in the spirit. He was literally behind there was a glass partition between us. And he was there. Normally, you wouldn't see him. I'd always felt the oppression. A lot of times when we feel oppression and deep, we're feeling spirits around us, okay? But the Father just allowed me to lift it to me to see him. And if he could have come in and torn my head off, he would have. Oh, yeah, through that glass.
But see, this is what I was saying before. I believe that it was prophesied that the Jews had lost their first love, and someone like you, a Gentile Goyim woman who has got such a passion, this is the fulfilling of the grafting process where, all the people that have come before you, Liz, that have neglected this truth, have not taught the extra canonical and the mysteries, these people are going to be cut off. And I know that this is a really tough topic for a lot of people, especially in the truth movement. We'll keep going, but I definitely...
Well, I know. We'll have to... That's kind of... I preach, like I always say, well, I'm not here to preach. I'm not going to preach, but...
It's good to know the enemy's plan, but after you're done your presentation, I'm going to share with everybody... I do believe that the Adam race and the story of what the prophesied fulfilling the 5,500 years down to today with the return of the Creator, this is our story. Now, understanding the evil side is important. That's why I'm totally with you here.
Well, because you have to know your enemy. But let me just say, see, it is true. Adam, see, the Father is going to, see, Adam is, and this is, he has many sons, is the firstborn in the house. So let's put, there's many brothers in the house, like anything. If you came from a family of 12 kids and, the oldest brother was put over the head of the house. And so that's sort of like Adam. He was given the role of the firstborn. Then you do have other brothers in there, and that's sort of what these other races are. They're not like, a lot of them are righteous, so you can't throw the whole, many of these, and this is how the story, and I'm not saying I've unpacked it 100%, but we know that our government is interfacing with other races. I mean, we know they go down to Antarctica, under the ice, because there literally are holding tanks, and that's where the Watchers, it says in the Zohar, that's where they were thrown deep in underground. So it's not an accident that all this
the key is given to the bottomless pit, right? That is an end times prophecy,
right? And so a lot of this knowledge, what I'm trying to say is, but the mark of the beast in the sense of, if you want to be part of the firstborn, if you want to be, back up all the way up to the top, I call the brains of the operation. If you want the programming of the mind of the intellect to be able to be with Yahweh, like in Control Central, and be part, that's what he says to us, the kings and the priests, those who kind of will be running, then you need to come in, you need to get the program, which is through Adam, which is through his Messiah, which is, Yeshua for us Gentiles, because we were cut off, and then ultimately it will be Messiah ben David, Yeshua when he comes back, and with Judah and us, we will have to defeat these people. This is what I'm saying. Those that are still in rebellion, we will defeat them. That is the story. With our resurrected bodies, at that point, will there be a change? And those who are on Team Yahushua will be changed, and we will turn around and kick butt. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord.
You got a bell. That's good. You had a Team Yahushua moment. That's where we want to.
Yes, you want to be on his team. You know.
Yes.
Now everybody will get a reward, and everybody perfect justice. I'm not here to determine everybody's soul. I'm just here to pass out the information so that we can prepare ourselves. Because Ronnie, I'm telling you, I've seen things in this. It's going to get pretty crazy. But I want to make one last point about Dagon. These are from the writings that Dagon or Onisis is the diminutive of dag, which is what I'm trying to show in that Hebrew word for fish. It's the three-letter root word is dag. It's fish. It's the Babylonians believed. This is part of their history, that a being part man and part fish emerged from the 3 sea and appeared in Babylon in the early days of its history. Representation of this fish god have been found among the sculptures of Nineveh. The Philistine Dagon was the same character. Now that's a quote from Manners and Customs of the Bible by James Freeman, which is a very authoritative, evangelical study book. But this is known, but what we have to do is kind of in our minds realize, wow, this stuff is not myth. This is really true. And we need to clean up a lot of the myth. There is a lot of baggage with some of it. But fundamentally, this is what it's talking about. Now, I have more, but if you want to ask me some questions or change, you have something, comment. Oh, well.
Yeah, keep going. You're in a flow. It's great.
Well, I have one more thing. Okay, so there's different. So the fish were the first ones. Okay, and this was really the underworld. A lot of this, there's so much information. But you go to fish, you go to the serpentines. Now, the dragons is a huge one that I will unpack a little bit different. This Leviathan and Behemoth. It says that in that day, Yahweh will punish this Leviathan. And it says this, that Nakash, that number 5175, which is serpent, which is Nakash, he will punish that Nakash, and he will slay, and he calls it that reptile, or that, but see, we got to realize that we're not really talking literally reptile, we are talking about that race. These are the serpent, the draconians, the serpentines, and this race is the one race, I will tell you, there are the problem people. This is the one that Cain, this comes the whole thing, how the line of the Cainites, the line that has been dogging mankind, it's in this root word tan, okay? And then there were birds, and he created birds, and birds always refer to angels that are in the heavens. One of the things people always got to understand is their geography. We inhabit different dimensions. When it talks about the 4 corners of the earth, what it's talking about is that there are 4 really very literal and different dimensions where all of the races live and were supposed to live. So in a lot of ways, Tolkien, who studied deeply the mythology of the earliest writings and learned some of the languages, the lost language of so when he found out hobbits, who are really creeping things, which means they're just small people, the little people. I mean, there is so much about the little people. Talk about Ireland. They got all sorts of stories. I mean,
again, it makes absolute sense to me when I think of things on a spiritual higher level. Again, there are orders of angelic beings, and there are earthly representations. I believe that we obviously we're predestined. I believe there's predestination, but I believe that everything chose its path throughout since, the rebellion in heaven. That's how it all started. Right? And continue, please.
Well, I don't know. And that's another whole huge, because that's a whole can of worms, like predestination. But what people understand is, oh God, that's such a big topic, Ronnie. And I know these are important, but we could do many shows. We should do a show once a week on these things, because that's another whole, but it needs its whole own focus, not to get, because there are fallen angels that are here, because I'm also, listen, when it comes to truth, I don't care. I don't have a horse in the race. I'm not dogma. If reincarnation is true, which I will tell you, according to the Essenes, according to the Pharisees, according to the early Christians, Origen, a lot of the early church fathers, the Pharisees, that's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is a very real doctrine. Okay, so people have no business just dismissing it out of hand. They should do their research. But if it's true, I think and it's called Gilgal cycle. People cycle through different ages. And they get another chance. You can either elevate your soul. Yahweh is so just.
Yeah, he is ultimately the most merciful, loving.
Set as many chances if you can just elevate your soul even a little bit at a time, maybe whatever. But
it's true what you're saying, but I do have there is a little bit of a bad news caveat to the end of that, is that I do believe we are running out of time.
Well, yeah, this is where the last generation. The gig is up. I said, get your chair, because when the music stops, if you don't have a chair, you're out of luck.
You're not getting a seat, right? Or your garment. So this is so much fun. If someone's asking in the chat if this is Kabbalah, it's crazy because it is Kabbalah and it is not witchcraft, right? No, everybody in the truth movement, Kabbalah, it's witchcraft. No, there are witches and warlocks and wizards that use Kabbalah as witchcraft. Liz does not.
Oh my gosh, please, I am not. There's nothing about me, and if you do, but let me just say this. Part of my problem, Ronnie, is we have been schooled, most of us, in what is called a fundamentalist mindset, which is very kindergarten. It really is. We don't even know how to talk about the power of Elohim in the way the ancients did.
Well, some of
us. I'm not talking about you and me, the elect, but I'm saying if you still go to a fundamentalist church today.
And you hear 2 scriptures a week, and
and they don't unpack anything. And if you ask a question outside of the box, it's like, oh my gosh, you all of a sudden became a heretic.
It's really, you can't really label one section of the word Kabbalah or one section of the word biblical, or one section there all is the spirit of the Creator, which is the teacher, the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. It is what comes and teaches us. And it can be used for evil intentions and it can be used for good.
And this is 100% the point. It says in Revelation that people who practice magic, who are whoremongers, who are liars, who, I think there's a 4th one in there, are not going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. I mean, Yahweh has some pretty basic laid down rules. You do not use the knowledge of how the universe operates for your own nefarious purposes or to harm other people, which is fundamentally a Luciferian black magic. All right. They are using and they have a tremendous knowledge. A lot of it was taught to them by the Watcher Angels who were heavenly. They had a greater scope of this thing, how to manipulate and use and get. So nobody is promoting magic. But the point people have to understand is Yahweh is a very powerful There's power. We're talking, there's power in the name of Yahweh. We cannot check our brains out. When Aaron and Moshe went into the court of Pharaoh, Egyptians were known necromancers, sorcerers, magicians, and warlocks. They were like the nation of this. And they could duplicate everything that the magicians were doing. And then finally they just kicked it up and said, your power is totally small compared to...
It rained frogs and all the waters turned to blood, and then all the locusts came and ate everything, and the snake that the necromancers had brought up was eaten by Moshe's snake, right? So how is power?
You're going to call Moshe a magician? I mean, what was he doing? Many of our prophets did have the ability. Yeshua said, look, I could call on angels at any time to kill all you people, do amazing things. Many probably people understand we have tremendous power at Ag, but we are to do it it's a holy, righteous, under the directions of our head, Yeshua. You just don't run out and start cursing people, right? Because they don't think the way or whatever. We just need to grow up in this area. Satan does not want Kabbalah understood because it's the last hiding place. If it's really exposed, this is what it tells. This is where the hidden mystery is. When it all comes out, he has no more hiding places. Believe me, when he is so flushed out, there's nothing, and that's why people will say, oh my gosh, you're just a man. You were what? You were the one who made the nations tremble. We were afraid of you. So he's all like a puffer fish, but he needs everybody to, be in the dark so that he can work his work. You know what I mean? Because the light exposes it. So it's not magic. I know that people use it for the wrong reasons, but that's not my problem. They're going to be judged by the Holy Father. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm glad I'm not in their shoes.
Yeah, there was somebody who was contesting that there was no scriptures for reincarnation. Matthew 14:2. And Yahushua said to his servants, this is John the Baptist. He has risen from the dead. This is why miraculous powers are at work in him. He has come back to life again, reincarnated. That's just one. I could go on more.
Well, there's tons, and that's another whole show. But there goes, he has miraculous powers. See, this is, and Ronnie, this is why Daniel says, and this knowledge is coming back to us in the holy, that's why Yeshua will be able to trust his last days remnant with power again. He trusted his early disciples and apostles with tremendous power. Look at what they did. Okay? This is, we got to grow up. You know, you can call it magic and whatever, but I'm going to call it, I'm going to operate in the power of Elohim.
Yeah, we're coming for the W.
Heal people, cast out demons, whatever.
We're coming.
We're coming.
I know, and there ain't nothing that they're ever going to be able to do to stop it, because the truth is the truth, and it's just the way that it is. I had to ban someone. It's too bad. It's sad that, you know, I have to ban people because there are teachings within the Zohar that seem to be matching up with the Word of God. So, you know, I'm going to let every man be a liar, and the Holy Scriptures, the Word of the Creator, come to me as truth, and I will be judged by how I judge. So I'm allowing, and you know, the things that I can debate with you, I will debate, and we might not agree on everything, but one thing is for sure, we are after the same goal. We are, he that is not with me scattereth abroad, but he that worketh with me is for me. Like, you know, he that is not, you are not working against Jason and I for what we do. You are.
And I have a great quote for you, Ronnie, when we get to it, about how even the rabbis, see, people have to understand, even the rabbis didn't agree on stuff. The rabbis, and like I said, I am not anti-Semitic, so I don't have a problem with the rabbis. They don't believe in Yeshua, but they believe in the Messiah. This is a big, deep subject, and people don't understand. But let me just say this, the rabbis do not all agree. They say that the only thing you need to agree on is halakha. It's like the fact, the 10 Commandments. You got to agree that, yes, there are certain things, halakha's laid down. Like I said, you don't practice magic arts, you don't fornicate, you don't do these things. That's what everybody's supposed to agree on. The rest of this esoteric stuff is so deep. You know, they don't expect everybody to agree because everybody's at a different level.
Well, the issue is, behold, is Revelation 3:9, behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, that are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. This is a prophecy that's speaking to Gentile people, or people that will be come and worshipped by the supposed Jews. Well, so,
can I give another spin when you're done? Sorry.
Well, yeah. Well, see, the thing that I am gonna obviously be criticized for, I am here to make peace with people that practice the Talmud and that practice these things, because in the end they are going to come to the truth. And if I feel that what my message that the Lord has been sharing with me is the truth, they are going to have to come, and we need to obviously make a bridge. We can't just go around saying, because in the Talmud it says that Jesus was the son of a whore, and you know, all of this stuff is besides the point. We have to get to an adult level, and we have to come at each other in peace. He that is with me is with me, right? If you believe in Yahweh, and they are going to understand. Like, look at what they had to go through, right?
Yeah, and Ron, okay, so this is my point. See, even the rabbis, I know that there are anti-Yeshua quotes in there, but there are just as many pro-Yeshua quotes. See, that's what they won't tell you. So many of the rabbis, so many Kabbalists are believers in Yeshua. Do you know that they had to kind of, one of the reasons the Jews tried to shut down Kabbalah in the 17th century, when it was starting to, again, really get public and really get up, was because so many of their rabbis were turning into Christians, were believing in Yeshua. He is all over the Kabbalah. He is Tiferet. He is Yahweh Vaveh. He is the sun. He's the middle pillar. He's everything, you know. He's the balancer. So it's so obvious. So, you know, there are just as many rabbis who believe in Yeshua and speak positively. See, the other side only wants to give, quote unquote, the rabbis that support, that's the pick and choose, that support their angle. All right. It's a propaganda war. No, there's just as many. Rabbi Akiya, I believe Joseph, Philo of Arimathea, a lot of these people were believers in Yeshua. To your point about, this is the Jews that say they were Jews. Listen, that was written by John, maybe 90 AD, you know, we'll give it between 80 and 100 AD. There weren't, the word Christian wasn't around. You were a Jewish Christian. So when he says, I will say to those who are Jews who are not, it's talking about Christians. Anybody who says they're like Yeshua says, if you don't love me and keep my commandments, you can't fool me. You're really not of me.
Yes.
So don't put it all on like all these Jews.
No.
It's
anybody who proclaims to be,
who's a faker, a hypocrite.
Yes.
And thinks they can just talk the talk and not walk the walk.
Yes.
So I think we got to put it in this context. It says Jew because that's the only word that was around then. There was no word Christian people used.
Well, and if we're on that topic real quick before we leave, you were the one that said to me that there are extremists in every movement. So you're going to find writings of the Zohar and the Talmud that are from extremist ideologies, and then you're going to find ones that you're saying that are Yahushai-centered. You're going to find both.
That's a fact. You go study it deep. See, I think the Talmud is, and the Mishnah is, what would we be without it? The Jews, what people don't understand is the birthright that was given, because, you know, Jacob split the birthright. He gave the priesthood to Levi. He gave the birthright to Ephraim, and he gave the scepter, or what would be called, no, he gave the birthright to Judah, the scepter, and he gave to Ephraim what's called the blessing. So in other words, he divided it like a good general would, right? Or into 3 different categories. So that's what's been playing out.
Well,
our birthright is not the oracles. We were Ephraim. We've been scattered to the nations for 3,200 years. We lost we became Gentiles. That's what Paul said. That's why he went because there were so many lost sheep that were Gentiles and didn't even know that they were. It was Judah, the older brother. That's in the story of the prodigal son, when the father's saying, look at Judah, the older brother, you've always been with me. You know, you've always been in the house. Judah has always been in the house. The prodigal is the one, that's us, who went out and just, became Gentiles and lost our inheritance. But the point is, Judah has always kept the writing. So the Talmud and the Mishnah is the writings that they have kept for us. And people should stop being anti and start reading them. Because I'm telling you what, because a lot of the stuff, the Holocaust, there's so many deep subjects, but let's get back to some of this.
All right, let's do it. But so far, I'm still enjoying the call. It's been great. So keep going, please.
Okay. Well, I just want to make one last point, because the thing is, the early writers will tell us what the Bible tells us about how the 3 races, now I got one last disclaimer. Species, there are 6, in my opinion, 6 overarching categories of species that Yah created, birds, fish, all these things. But within those classifications, there's tons of different kinds of birds. So it's like the 10 commandments. There's 10 overarching categories, and yet like thou shalt not commit adultery. That's just like the title of the whole category of sexual sins, which includes
right down to your thoughts.
Bestiality. What's that?
Right down to spiritual thoughts. It's, adultery, you could be fantasizing in your mind. You've committed the sin.
Yes, exactly. So there's a lot of, they write whole books on just the category of sexual sins. Okay. So what I'm saying. So it's the same thing with the races. So so here's another quote. There's a book. If people want to read this thing, it's called, you can go online. It's called The Fragments. I should probably even put this, Fragments of Chaldean History by Berosus. Okay, wait a minute. Where is a better title I have here? And what it is, this is Fragments of Chaldean History from Alexander Polyhistor of the Cosmology and Deluge. Okay, so this is some of the early historians. Now, it says in another category of writings called the Sibylline oracles, which I think you've heard of, everybody's probably heard of. These oracles, they mention 3 players, which is what you always get. You get Kronos, Titan, and Japetus. And it says right here, this Kronos, Titan, and Japetus, and are the 3 sons, the 3 sons of the patriarch governing the world in the 10th generation after the deluge. Thus, the triple division of the earth is afterwards mentioned, over which each of the patriarchs ruled in peace. So we know this from the text, that Noah divided the earth amongst his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Now, I'm doing a deep study trying to figure out who's who. I'm pretty sure that Kronos is Ham, Okay. Japetus would be Japheth, right? I mean, that would, and Titan, I'm pretty sure Titan is Shem. All right. Now, it says here in another place that the city of Babylon, Palace Mansions, okay, another historian, because it's a compilation of all ancient historians, makes mention of Belus. Now, the king of the Assyrians, I think Belus was Nimrod, and Kronos, Ham, and Titan, Shem, and says that Belus, with the Titans, made war against Zeus and his compeers. I don't know who are called gods. He
companies,
says,
troop like
his troops, probably his companiers, right? That would be troops. He says, moreover, that Gigas was smitten and fled to Tartessus. Now, these are, what we have to understand is these early patriarchs, when these people, they lived, I mean, pre-flood, 10 generations lived 1,000 years, right? Within most of them between the 8 and 1,000 year range, right? That's a long time. After the flood, Shem, Ham, a lot of these people, they lived 500, 600, 700 years. That's a long time. People don't understand their legacy, their stories. One thing we know about them, they were bigger, stronger, had better brains, were more technologically advanced, better genetics.
It was Trey Smith that brought out that the Neanderthal skull that was measured had, due to the density and the size of the forehead bone, they were able to determine, and the jaw structure with the teeth, that they were like supermen. They like you said, they had the rejuvenating code, and they were like huge. They were like 7 feet tall, big, and lived for, like you said, 1,000 years. It's amazing.
Yeah. So this, now I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know yet. I still have to spend. I mean, I feel like we need an army of people, Ronnie, who will look at these texts and unpack this. I'm just one person. Well,
no, you have an army of people with you, angels with you. So no, one person can.
It's fried, but I wonder if the Titans, if it's Shem. Now listen to this quote. I have 2 quotes. This is interesting. This is a rabbi, indeed, Rabbi Shammai, Yosef Shammai, in his Sefer Shahar Yosef, compiles numerous midrashim and correlates them to some of the world's mysteries. He concludes that ancient cities, long ago forgotten in the jungle of South America, were originally built by the children of Cain. Among these ancient cities appear to be seats carved into the sides of mountains big enough to sit someone 100 feet tall. Isn't that what we just said? The existence of these ancient carvings is documented fact that as our ancient ground drawings, hundreds of yards across, that only become visible to someone flying over. So if you were 100 or 50 feet, because there are stories that will say Adam was 450 ells. I mean, you got to wrap your mind around it. It's hard.
Yeah. But there was someone who had an account of him in Sheol, and the story was that he was like this giant being down there, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, but the point is, if you were that tall and because a lot of these drawings you see like in the mountains in the Mayan area, you can only see them from up high. But if you were 450 or if you were 100 feet high, you could see them. And you maybe could that's how you could communicate. So we have to read, but the point I want to say is that they know, I do believe a lot of the Canaanite, after the flood, a lot of the Canaanite and giants went to South America, and a lot of those cultures, which I think has been pretty much unpacked by a lot of people. And the city of Mexico City, its ancient name, Enochtian, really means Enoch, Titalayan, son of Enoch. So in other words, it is the city that, when it says that Enoch went off and made a city, you could easily make, and that's why they have found all of these underground, and everybody.
This is Enoch, the son of Cain.
The son of Cain.
That's right. Not Enoch, not the son of Jared.
Yeah, see, we got to keep that straight. There's so much, again, you got to keep your people straight. You got to keep your bloodline straight, the name straight. It's not easy. Now,
we're not talking about the pyramids, but there are, Jason brought it up, because we believe that the pyramids are Freemasonic hoaxes. They actually used Roman technology. They were actually poured and formed. The structure that you were just speaking about, the carved out mountains, and there are some underwater cities as well with super large structures. I do believe that there were giants that lived on the earth.
You can't get around it. All the texts talk about giants. Here's another one, and this is from...
I know one. His name's Wake Souls. I'm just kidding.
Ptolemaeus writes, as another ancient historian, he says, the city of Babylon owes its foundation to those who were saved from the catastrophe of the deluge. They all talk about the deluge. It was common knowledge. They talk about how the ark landed in Turkey on Arafat.
Well, that's another thing that you can verify. The most ancient tree I was telling you earlier is Methuselah, which I believe it dates back to 4,500 years roughly, and everything else basically you can understand that there was the deluge. Yes,
totally. So, but let me just finish this part of this ancient. He says that this city. All right, Babylon owes its foundation to those who were saved from the catastrophe of the deluge. They were the giants, and they built the tower, which is noticed in history. He's talking about the Tower of Babel. But the tower being overthrown by the interposition of God, the giants were scattered all over the earth. I mean, he's totally confirming what we know today, what the rabbi just said. He says, moreover, that in the 10th generation in the city of Kamarimina of Babylonia, which some call the city of so we know, and which signifies a city of the Chaldeans.
Yeah, the land of and Chaldeans.
Yes. The 13th in descent lived Abraham, of a noble race, and superior to all others in wisdom, of whom they relate that he was the inventor, of astrology and of the Chaldean. Now, this is where people have to understand Chaldean magic. The way the ancients use the word magic is not the way we're using it in our modern...
The Magi. The wise men were not witches.
Right. They weren't witches. What they did, they had an understanding of how the heavens and the earth, how the heavens affect the earth. They had deep, understanding of how all the forces work.
We can make it really simple. It's a story playing out in the sky, in the stars, along the ecliptic path. And it's not magic. It's just understanding the storyline, right?
It's not that it's not magic. What it is there's a whole science the ancients had, and this is the science of correspondences. The point is, this is all over the rabbi. This is in our text. I could show you where the heavens affect the earth. So the heavens are like there's a force. That's there's forces, there's the energy, and then there's the thing that's being energized. Okay, so the sun is sending down energy, and it's energizing seeds and plants and people and everybody. So there's processes, and this is what magic does. They use those processes for their own nefarious aim, or so it's very. But what my point is, we have to understand. When they're talking about magic, they are not talking about what in the modern mind, because we think all magic is evil. It was just a benign word like occult. Well,
I believe they were the descendants of Seth, and they were taught the higher angelic order and the movement of the stars down through Enoch.
Right. Yeah, and it'll tell you in a lot of the writings how the Babylonians and how Noah was, and this is one, like the Sefer Yetzirah, Noah was one of the greatest. He received some of the greatest downloads about the heavenly bodies and how they operate.
Yeah.
What was going on.
It was cut back down to 8, right?
Down to 8 what?
People. Oh, no, sorry. This is an area of study where you're telling me that some of the beasts that were brought onto the boat were actually Gentile. But that's a whole other topic.
But we'll get into that. Let me make my last point, and then so we got Abraham here, that on account of his eminent piety, he was esteemed by Yahweh. It is further said that under the direction of God, he moved and lived in Phoenicia and taught the Phoenicians the motions of the sun and moon and all other living things, for which reason he was held in great reference by their king. Now, for the Babylonians say that the first was Belus, who I believe the Babylonians, Nimrod, we know, was the king over Babylon, who was the same, whose father was Kronos. We know that is Ham, and from him descended another Belus. There must be a Belus Jr. in this. And Canaan, we know Canaan, another son who was very wicked. Canaan was the father of the Phoenicians, and another of his son was Cum, who is Cush, and he was the father of the Ethiopians and the father of Mitzrayim. So in other words, the Egyptians. So you have, because see, the thing is, a lot of the ancient history, one thing they do, because it's a war of the sea, is they make their seed line out. They're not changing the history. There was a flood, but it's really Ham who's the hero, okay? So depending on your POV,
yeah, they flip it, just like it was Satan that brought the knowledge. It wasn't
right. So but what I'm saying, it's confirming the fact that our texts are telling us accurate factual history, which the ancients knew, which again, our secular liars are trying to keep us from, because they want to foist on us a whole new origin theory, right? So, we can go in. I have one last thing to share if you want, or if you want to take it somewhere.
No, please continue.
Because this will be the last thing. What am I see? Oh, well, okay, hold on one second. Rabbi Yeshua, Epiphanius, the Sibylline Oracles. Because you had brought it up, Ronnie. There was something you had said. Oh, okay. Let me share. Can I screen share on this?
Yeah, go ahead. You're
okay.
set up for screen share.
People understand, okay, when, you know, like I said, people understand that there was a war in heaven between day 1 and day 2 and a recreation, right? I think most people can kind of see that. But the point is, and maybe what we could do is another, if you want to do a follow-up, what I'd like to do is one on time, how the Hebrews calculate times, okay? Let's let these go. So let me just share this from the Targums, right? You're familiar with the Targums, which is kind of like always sort of the an amplified way of saying these things. So here is in the Targums of Genesis 1 from the Palestinian Targum and the Jerusalem Targum. Genesis 1:2, it says, and the earth was vacant, vacancy and desolation, solitary, the sons of men, and void of every animal. And darkness was upon the face of the abyss, and the spirit of mercies from before the Lord, from Yahweh, breathed upon the face of the waters. So, I mean, here's new information. Where did you ever think there were animals, sons of men? You know, it's kind of in this story here. And then it says it again in Jerusalem Targum, Genesis 1:2, and the earth was vacancy and desolation, which was Tahu and Bahu, and solitary, the sons of men, and void of every animal. And the spirit of mercies from before Yahweh breathed upon the face of the waters. So what I have to say is this is an understanding that is in our text, okay? Now, what I've begun to unpack, if people want to listen to my series, I kind of give this whole intro, and then I've started to map through Bible verses. Because if you start going through them methodically, you will constantly see that, here's one here, I'll end up with this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Why does he always talk about an Adam, and then look, and the birds and the fish and the creeping things and the birds are all, because if you really read the study of Noah and the covenant that he made with Noah, because I had these little verses and it talks about how Noah brought not only his family but his friends on the ark. And what I was trying to say is, if you've read the stories where on the animals, there's a lot of apocryphal say that if the animals had to like kind of bow to Noah to get on the ark. Remember, have you ever read that part? Which is what is their apocryphal is saying is any of the other species, would acknowledge judgment was coming, and they would acknowledge who Noah was as the king of the earth and get on board. But if you were in rebellion, but then Yahweh he told him to bring 2 of every unclean. See, it's so encoded. He said, you bring 7 of pairs of all clean animals, which are going to be, you know, with the program. You can bring 2 of all of the rebellious species.
Well,
so
he had to keep his word that he would let the 2 go until the end, and then he would, you know, then the judgment will be made then.
And then, so here's a fragment of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is blessing to Yahweh and the angels. I don't know, it has a name. It's a fragment. It's 4Q287, fragment 3. It says, but again, in their awesome deeds, and they will bless your holy name with blessings, the utterly holy ones, all creatures of flesh, okay, all of them that you created, you shall bless you. And it says, beast, birds, creeping things, fish of the seas, and all of you all ... there's a locution in there. You created all of them anew. See, and this is the story of that he's offering.
That's Yahushua. He makes everything new. He proved that by giving his life, right?
But this is what I'm trying to say, is this is how they encode that there were other species. Beasts, birds, creeping things, fish, the seas, and they lived in different domains, but they're all, that's why Yeshua had to go down and preach to the, the spirits or the souls, the demons, or those that were locked in under the underground, okay, in the abyss. I mean, this thing is so big. This thing, so I don't know. That was just that's a taste. We could go on and on, but so to me, I think this is pretty cutting edge in the sense of, because we need to understand that a lot of these races are still in rebellion against the Father. They're going to appear on the earth. This is their last ditch. They can go try to hide in caves or dens of the earth or try to get up onto high mountains, but it's not going to work. Yahweh work, they're going to be found. They're going to be thrown, into, they're going to be locked up with Satan and the beast and all this, and we're going to have a peaceable kingdom. We're going to go into 1,000 years of rest. Huh.
That is amazing. That's truly what I'm looking for. So I wanted to share this with everybody. Have you ever seen this process, Liz?
No. What do we do?
Parent, when a tree.
Okay, no. This is a fruit tree. So I'm just going to read the scriptures while you see this on the side. Why is it giving me such a hard time? So what does it say here? It says, but some of these branches from Abraham's tree, some of the people of Israel, have been broken off. And you Gentiles, who were branches from a wild olive tree, have been grafted in. So now you also receive the blessing of Yahweh has promised Abraham and his children, sharing in the rich nourishment from the root of Yahweh's special olive tree. But you must not brag about being grafted in to replace the branches that were broken off. You are just a branch, not the root. So that kind of goes along with what we were saying today, that Liz is truly fighting for Judah, the original writings, the way that it was taught down. Now you're separating the witchcraft. You're bringing back the original teachings, and as you can see here, this is so amazing how this process is done. As we're watching it. So have you ever seen that? No,
I've never seen. But it's so, this is why I will say that the rabbi, what they do is the way Hebrew works is what's called a concrete language, meaning they take real things that happen, that we can relate to in nature, just like this, the grafting of a tree. And they show you how in the spiritual kingdom, it's the way you can help wrap your mind around it. Because we can't go in the spirit world and see what's going on. We can only take something like this and extrapolate and try to understand it to the best we can. You see what I'm saying? So we can understand that there's fish in the sea and that they live in a different, we can't live in the sea because we don't have the lungs to do it. Our lungs have to breathe there. But those fish, those species that live in the sea, they have bodies and apparatuses that can breathe air. But as you notice, that Dagon, the fish god, he had to go back into the sea every night, which again will tell you a lot. There's so much, but yeah, the fact that Hebrew is so concrete and it always uses what happens in nature to explain what's going on.
Yeah, it totally is. Just like that scripture was saying. I think the screen share was frozen, but now I've got it. I'm just showing everybody again the way that this is done. You take the two parts of the tree, you wrap it, tie it. It's quite amazing how, the originals, Judah was given the truth, and they were the house, the line of the lineage of the Creator when he came into this reality. But yet they lost their first love, and we're not supposed to go around, chanting for them to be put to death. We're supposed to be thankful that we've been grafted in, and we're supposed to show the fruits of the Creator in our lives.
Right. And so, Ronnie, can I just add, because, see, I just have to say, I think that there is, there's a verse, my favorite verse, in I think it's in Jeremiah. It says that we're going to, in the reunification, we're getting to a place where Judah is not going to vex Ephraim, and Ephraim is not going to dog Judah. Right now, we're so different from each other, sometimes we really get on each other's nerves, but I am not anti-Semitic at all. There are wheat and tares everywhere. So there are false Jews like there's false Christians. And you just have, and Yeshua always said, you'll know them by their fruit. So it isn't that Judah is still, I don't believe in replacement theology. Judah is still has their birthright intact. They haven't done anything they were kicked out of the land because they did not know their season. It's like so they are in exile like we are technically. An Ephraimite is still in exile until he gets born again and grafted in.
That's right. People constantly say in Christianity, oh, I was saved in 1998. And, you know, I asked Jason, I'm like, are you a regular human? You're alive? And his answer's like, yep, seems like it. Well, obviously you're not raised again. You're not saved yet. We're still in this spiritual war. And like you said, there are an overwhelming number of people that are, of the supposed Jewish race, whether there are Jews or not, but they've been hoisted into positions of destruction throughout history. And I do believe that a great trick that Satan would love to have you believe is that it's all just the bad Jews that are doing this to you, because evil, it comes through in every single bloodline, spiritual race. We are all affected equally by it. There's no one leader. It's the Jesuits, the Masons, the secret societies. They all work together. It's not just the Jews. But I do believe that there are a bad group of them that have used the Kabbalah.
The Pope. See, I mean,
yes, the Jesuit, the Roman is just as bad, if not worse. And
you cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. My point is, at the time of Yeshua, the majority of the people actually went on and believed in Yeshua. The Nazarenes, which was the biggest sect, basically took over the Essenes. Most of the Essenes became believers. Many Pharisees, that's in our text, even some of the Sadducees, it's all over. There were many people that believed in Yeshua that were Jews.
Well,
the nation, it was the leadership. They had a leadership in place that were Idumean, that were hybrids, that were of their father, the devil. It is that group that was judged. And so what people they're not specific enough. You cannot say the whole nation. It was the very top leadership that was corrupt. Like, and Yeshua always says that he judges the leaders and the elders. Yes. Really, because they're the ones who are responsible. Yes. That's their job, is to make sure that the nation stays on track and honors the Father, all this kind of stuff.
And that's why...
It wasn't judging the people that went on to become, and then, the history of the bad blood between the two houses is another whole story. It's...
Well, like I said, I just commend you for your effort, and... I'm constantly trying to learn as much as I can. Like it says, seek and you shall find. It doesn't say you might find. It says you will. And it also says the more you seek, the more you'll be given. And I do believe that we're in the last times. You are preparing a type of a meal. And we all need to recognize that you've put the time in and hear you out. And like I said, I'm going to put the link to your channel again in the chat. Everybody can check it out and do your own research. There is good and bad in everything. And what Jason and I do here on Team Yahushai, Liz is a member as well, we discern the good and we get rid of the bad. We expose the bad to the light, right? And we accept the good. And that's what we're going to be doing all the time, as much as we possibly can. So... Again, it's been really fun. Why don't you give us a little bit more about you and finish off the hangout? It's been really fun today.
Well, all right. Well, thank you, Ronnie, and I appreciate it, and you and Jason too, and give my best. Like I just said, the electrifying each other. One thing it says in the last days is it says, "Tell the righteous it will be well with them," but it says but then it says, "Woe, tell the wicked it's going to be woe for them." So, there's two messages. For us, hey, we're going to end up just fine. We're going to be okay. The wicked are the ones who are going to come under judgment and go bye-bye. So if you're, it always comes down to, you better just make your peace with the Creator Father, because time is running out. The music's going to stop. And if you don't have a chair, or it's when the music stops, it's over. Because eons weeks end, that's in the 6 days, and then there's a seventh day. Once you hit that day, there's no, you're in that day, there's no going back. So there's so many analogies, but I just been at this forever. I just love the word. I know that I'm in my zone. Hey, I'm older. My kids are grown. I'm at a stage in my life, retired, where I can do this as much, almost full time. I am a watercolor artist. That's my tent making job. I have a watercolor website people could also find, but this is my passion. This is my love. And I just think, Yahweh, I praise him because, truth does set you free and makes you get on fire. Woo!
Me too. I truly appreciate it. And I appreciate everything you do. I'm going to have you back again. We'll do more of this research and more of this study together. And we'll continue to show people that we are moving ahead. We are coming for all of the lies and deception, and we are coming for the truth to restore it and bring it back and make the crooked way straight, right? And plane out the hills and the bumps and make everything flat and level.
That's right. Okay.
So everyone, make sure you go over and subscribe and check out Liz's page. She is working for the elect and unlocking the keys. So you get over there and do your own research, because you've been told, and there's people in the chat, Liz. Jason said, thank you so much. Pushing truth to the edge is where we should all be, where it's all about. You totally are. We got Zane says, thank you so much. Thanks, Liz. From Lex Van, Yahweh's daughter said, so appreciate this. She really appreciates this time with me and you, Liz. So I guess people would like to have you back.
Well, I'd like to, like I said, we need to unpack time. So if you want to do it, because that's a real interesting
deeper study, yeah.
Because you can't really. So, anyways, that would be a good one. But I also think people, and I love to dialogue with people. If people want to, make comments and get my email, and I do play. Be your own critical thinker. Read the Zohar. All it takes it's just
do your own thinking. Don't listen to other people.
The text myself. I don't let anybody tell me what it says. I read it myself. I believe the Father is with me. So I just say people do the same thing. Just read it. It's beautiful.
Yes.
So anyways, but I love you guys. All right, so I'm going to go have my dinner, and I'm going to upload this to my channel. So you guys, if you will be able to watch this also again on my channel. So
okay. Well, thank you definitely for being here, and join us tonight at the Awake Souls channel at 8 p.m. Central for another episode of Beyond the Flat Earth. But thanks again, Liz. I'm going to play us out. If you just hit mute, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Possible that each moment of every day of our lives is actually happening inside of a simulated reality that looks and feels totally real to us.
You've reached Beyond Flat Earth, live every Wednesday night on the Awake Souls channel.